can start this story in 1968 at the revival of modern-day Speedway.
Okay, well, Whiteman Stadium was really the beginning of the revival of Speedway as we know it now. So that's been over 50 years ago.
The Speedway track at the Whiteman Stadium was held at the Whiteman Stadium Airport. There was an airport hangar, and right outside the hangar, there was a big circle concrete track, and in the middle of that concrete track, there was a Speedway track. And the stands were a little bit far behind the Speedway track, so the fans really didn't get up and close and personal. So it did take away a little bit from the excitement of the sport.
A track that was put together by a guy named Dude Criswell, and Dude Criswell was the promoter. And Dude, I might say, had a little bit of a checkered past, but he loved Speedway. He rode Speedway, I think, in probably the late 40s, early 50s before it died out. And he was determined to bring it back.
And there was an old Speedway rider in the 1950s. This is before the riders were really around. His name was Dude Criswell. Dude Criswell was the first promoter. He's the one who brought back Speedway in the modern era in America. And some called him the Shady Dude. Dude Criswell was shady. He was kind of, you know what he did? He was a racer. He was racing the Speedway bikes, trying to earn some money, and then he was promoting. He was trying to pocket money as a racer and pocket money as a promoter.
So with Jerry Fairchild and some other people, they got together some old JAPs, some old Japs that Jerry had in storage, and for years and years and years, they got them running.
And there was a truck, an old pickup truck driving down the road. And there was a wife next door. Her name was Ida, and it was Jerry Fairchild. He's driving that old pickup truck. And guess what was in the back of the pickup truck? There was a bunch of old 1930s, 1940s, old JAP Speedway bikes. Jerry Fairchild was a mechanic of some of the early day greats in the 1930s. And here in the 1960s, he's come along with all these Speedway bikes to take him to Whiteman Stadium so all these riders can have a Speedway bike.
They opened up the track on a Saturday night. So a lot of the riders that race at Ascot Park on Friday night, which are all professionals and, Class C experts, a lot of them, they would come out and ride Speedway on Saturdays just for fun.
The riders, they shared the Speedway bike. They actually didn't keep the Speedway bike. They were all Fairchilds, but they were sharing. So one rider would get done riding, they would refuel it with the methanol, and the next rider in the next heat would get on that Speedway bike and race that JAP. It was wild. That was because the riders didn't have a Speedway bike at the very beginning.
That's how it kind of began. And then it got a little more serious because there was a lot more interest in it. There was the Jawa came out, which was a current Speedway bike. It wasn't something that was built in the 30s or 40s. And so the interest became real. And, that was the beginning.
However, they were racing at the Whiteman Stadium. That was the only track available. I believe it was like on a Saturday night. They had newcomers like Mike Bass and Steve Bass. With Uncle Harlan brought the Speedway bikes, and you had all these new flat track Speedway riders. They really didn't know how to ride the Speedway bike like we know how to ride today. They were flat trackers, so they rode the Speedway bike like flat track style. They rode it kind of like two-wheeling it and gassing it. It was a little different than we ride today.
Here's a practice session at Whiteman, and this is when we were all sitting down. This is before we knew how to stand up and ride the bikes properly. So you can get a little bit of an idea of how we rode prior to Ivan and Barry showing up and teaching us the proper way. This is at Whiteman. A little disclaimer here, these are all home videos, so unfortunately for the people out there watching had to see a lot of me and my brother, because my dad did most of the filming. But I tried to get other people involved in some of the videos so you can see, how everything was progressing. But you can see right then that there was like a difference in the riding style between some of that video with me sitting down, which was how we used to do it, and you can definitely go a lot faster standing up. Then we realized that we had a big learning curve, and it really was also, I think, kind of the separation between the beginning of Speedway, where guys wanted to ride Speedway, and it was a different style altogether than riding a flat track bike. And you almost had to make a decision if you were going to make a career out of this. And you had to either go one way or the other. And so we ended up with some guys that left the Class C flat track, like Rick Woods, Bill Cody, Mike Conley, a lot of guys that were really, really good. They left Class C and decided to ride Speedway, or Class A, which means alcohol. And so it was kind of a dividing point at that time.
Dude Criswell might have been the shady promoter, but he was a good promoter too. He brought back team racing the first year of the Speedway in 1968. They had team racing. It got a little disorganized towards the end. They started sort of trading teams, making new teams up. But for several times, they actually had team racing. That was pretty innovative considering the American Speedway just came back. A lot of these guys, they didn't know better. And actually, Gene Woods, he told me when he's on the show that a lot of these guys were the flat track. They actually were riding the short tracks like a Speedway track. And then they're short track riders, and the short track riders came to Speedway. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a conglomeration of all different types of riders. I had, friends that wanted to ride Chuck Minert, Feats Minert. He was a really good motocross rider. He rode Speedway for a little while. Everybody wanted to try it because it looked like it was so much fun, which it is. I mean, throwing a bike sideways, backing it in, all that stuff is, that's the ultimate dream for a lot of guys that ride motorcycles. They love doing that stuff. And so a lot of guys, they dabbled in it to see whether they liked it or not. But, you're right. A lot of guys that rode at Trojan, Speedway, that were like Larry Shaw, a lot of these guys that were very good, they went on to ride Speedway, and they kind of gave up the other career. And the main thing is, your right side, the foot peg's only like 2.5 or 3 inches off the ground. Where on a regular motorcycle, it's, your leg's bent and you can't stand up, you can't straighten it. So the difference being that you have to have all that leverage when you go into the corner. You can stand up and you can push down on that right foot, and you can stand up and you can move your body back and forth, and you can move your leg, back and forth, your left leg, kind of like a rudder, make it turn sharper or make it turn less. So there's that lot goes into it that you have to learn. It's not just a matter of standing up. There's a lot more to it than just that. So it became something that people had to learn how to do, and you really couldn't do both. It was hard to do both.